On Monday, the 24th of November 2025, the driving test in Great Britain is changing. Notice I say Great Britain and not the United Kingdom because Northern Ireland have their own systems. This is Great Britain only, England, Scotland and Wales. In this video, I'm going to let you know what the changes are and how this is going to affect you. The length of the test isn't changing. It's still going to be between 38 and 40 minutes long. If the DVSA was to change the length of the test, that would be quite challenging. They would have to change so much more to do that. What the DVSA want is to get the driver on test to be able to do more rural roads, high-speed roads and high-risk areas. How are they going to do this? Well, the changes to the test, they're going to require 3 stops during the test instead of 4, and 1 out of 7 tests are going to include the emergency stop instead of 1 out of 3 tests. How do these changes make a difference? Well, not having to pull over at the side of the road as often and not having to include the emergency stop on as many tests, this opens up how the driving test route can be changed. At the moment, the routes need to take into account that the driver needs to pull over 4 times during the test, and 1 in 3 tests need to include the emergency stop. That restricts where the routes can go because the routes need to include places where the driver can pull over, where the driver can do the emergency stop. Not having to do the emergency stop on as many tests and not having to pull over as much during the test, that opens up different routes. This means it's more likely that they're going to be able to have test routes that include rural roads, higher speed roads and high risk areas. The trouble is some test centres don't have enough rural roads, high speed roads and high risk areas. Where I am in Colchester, we are a good example because although we have plenty of rural roads and high risk areas on the test routes, we don't have a 70-mile-an-hour road with a slip road. We did try to have one on one of the test routes, but that test was always back late. It just took too long to get there, use that route or use that 70-mile-an-hour road and get back to the test centre, so they dropped that route. Therefore, in Colchester, none of the tests include a 70-mile-an-hour road or a slip road. These changes to the test doesn't necessarily mean we will get a route with a 70-mile-an-hour road. It just means that more test centres are going to be more likely to be able to include such roads in their routes. Why does this matter? Well, from experience, I know in Colchester, not all driving instructors teach 70-mile-an-hour roads or 70-mile-an-hour slip roads. Why not? Well, they're not included on the driving test. They should teach these, but they're not going to be tested on it. So although they should do it, some people just get away with what they know they can get away with. And if there is a 70-mile-an-hour road on one of our test routes, that means instructors are going to have to be forced to teach 70-mile-an-hour roads and 70-mile-an-hour slip roads instead of the DVSA just relying on them to teach such roads. It goes further than this. I'm actually under pressure not to teach my pupils how to use 70-mile-per-hour roads and slip roads. This pressure is indirect, but it's there. Let me explain. When I teach my pupils how to use these roads, I don't just go on them, come off them and tick the box and go, yep, we've done them now, sorted, let's move on. I get them to do these roads until I feel confident that they can do them on their own safely. And that is the case with everything that they are learning. They must be able to do it on their own safely. Now, this may lead my pupil to not being very happy with me because they may take more hours to cover all these things properly in depth, whereas their friend with another instructor got through in less hours. But it's an unfair comparison because maybe that other person skipped some things. Maybe they didn't spend very long on dual carriageways, 70-mile-an-hour roads, or didn't do them at all because they can get away with it. So in order for me to compete with teaching people in the minimum number of hours, well, I'm going to need to start cutting corners to compete with some of the other people who would be cutting corners. Instead of teaching people to actually be able to drive safely on their own in various situations, I would just be teaching people to just about get through the test. Put a sticker here, line up that line with this sticker, turn the wheel all the way to the right, keep looking around, you get in the space, don't worry. Now, we don't need to learn how to use the mirrors to actually reverse your car anywhere in any situation. Just a little trick to help you get in a bay at a car park. And if you didn't know what I was talking about there, I was talking about the free line method to reverse into a parking space in a car park. You put a sticker on the door, you line up the third line after the parking space that you want in the car park, turn all the way, and then hope you've got it right. That's not going to work in all cars, that's going to work in that particular car, and it's certainly not going to help you when you're driving down a single track road, you meet a vehicle coming the other way, and you need to reverse. Many people pass their driving test having never done a 70-mile-an-hour road, having never done a country road or a single track road. Let me know in the comments if you think you missed out anything during your driving lessons that you think you should have been taught. High-speed roads, country roads, whatever it is, let me know what you think was missing from your lessons. The driving test standard isn't changing. The way it's marked and the standard you need to reach to pass the driving test is the same. It's the routes that are changing to include more rural routes, high-speed roads, and high-risk areas. The independent driving is also changing. It's no longer going to be a section of the test, it's going to take up the whole test. And you're no longer going to be either following the sat-nav or the signs. They're going to have flexibility to do a mixture of both. This frees up how many routes they can have, where they can go. Because if they're trying to design a route following the signs, that really restricts where they can go because, well, there isn't always signs or there isn't always clear signs. But if they can do a mixture of both, well, they can go more places. Also, the reason why they want to have the whole test be independent, where you're following the sat-nav or the signs, is because that is how you're likely going to be driving once you pass your driving test. You're not going to have an examiner giving you clear directions where to go. You're going to be following a sat-nav or the signs, or you're going to just know where you're going, which of course, when that's the case, is a bit easier. So in theory, these changes mean that driving test centres are going to be able to have a greater variation of challenges for learners on their driving test routes because they're going to be able to go more places. You're less likely going to hear this: go and take your test at that test centre. At that test centre, they don't have any of this on the routes, so you don't need to learn this. Many years ago, a common request I had was, can I learn in Clacton, or can I take my test in Clacton, please? Because in Clacton, it's all one way and you don't have to do reverse in a car park. Now, don't quote me on that about Clacton. I don't know the area very well. It's not an area I cover. I've been to the test centre a few times in nearly 17 years. I certainly do not know the test routes. It's just a question my pupils used to ask me fairly often, but it's not a question I get anymore. And I think the reason why my pupils suddenly stopped asking me if they could do their test in Clacton is because I think the Clacton test routes changed. And I think they changed when the driving test changed in 2017. It's the most significant change I've seen since I've been doing the job in 2009. They actually removed two of the manoeuvres. They removed turn in the road, that's the 3-point turn, and reverse round the corner. And they introduced forward bay parking, then reversing out, and pulling over on the right, then reversing back to car lengths. These changes were to try and give more flexibility to routes to allow more rural roads, high-speed roads and high-risk areas, and generally greater flexibility so that each test centre can test their learners on more things. And I think that changed Clacton's routes, and then people stopped asking me if they could do their test in Clacton. I don't know if that is the case because I don't know the routes in Clacton. I just know people used to ask me to do their test in Clacton, and these days they don't bother. And I actually see these changes in 2025 to the driving test as an extension to the changes in 2017. They're going in the same direction, they're just taking it a bit further. They're allowing test routes to have more options, meaning the test routes can be designed to take in different kinds of roads, different kinds of junctions, instead of all the manoeuvres, emergency stops and stops at the side of the road, limiting where they can go, meaning many of the routes end up taking similar roads. So the driving test standard isn't getting harder. It's going to be marked in the same way. It's just that it's more likely you're going to be tested on more aspects of your driving during that driving test. Therefore, it's less likely you can get away without learning an aspect of driving and still passing. Not impossible, just less likely. If you found the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're looking for car insurance, check out the links to Collingwood and Confused in the description. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, then Collingwood are there for you, because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy, and this takes away a big stress from the owner of the car that you're using to practice learning to drive in. Via the link at the moment, there's up to 35% off and a £20 gift card. If you want to insure your own car, I recommend checking out the link to confused.com, because you fill out one quote form and get loads of quotes back to compare who's cheapest, and you get rewards if you buy through confused.com. The most recent reward I got was £20 gift card or voucher, not a gift card, a £20 voucher at Sainsbury's, and a hot regular drink, a free hot regular drink at Greggs every month for a year. And you can change your car on that quote as many times as you like without having to do the whole quote again, so it's a quick and easy way to compare how much it costs to insure different cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.